What's up, YouTubers and plant lovers? It's Justin, and today I was going to show you how I care for my Trachycarpus fortunii. Now, you may have heard it called the Chinese Windmill Palm, the Windmill Palm, the Chushan Palm, or just simply the Cold Hardy Windmill Palm. But this is the Windmill Palm, and it is the most hardy of all the palm trees out there. If you've ever seen a palm tree pretty far up north that you swear probably didn't belong there, or maybe even was just covered in snow, it was probably this guy right here. They are native to the kind of temperate and subtropical mountainous forest regions of China, but now they're cultivated all over the world. They started out in China, and then they moved to like Myanmar and India and Japan, but you can find them all over the world. And in the United States, they are found most commonly in zones 7 through 10. Some will say that they can be found in like zones 11, but this tree for a palm tree is a little bit different. Normally they like the cooler, not colder areas, and they dislike extreme heat. So I would say that they are more native and found in areas of like zone 7 to 10, but they have had some recent success in zone 6 where I'm from. And if you're from northern Kentucky or Louisville and you've ever been to Brian's Botanicals on Preston Highway, they have a couple of yuccas and some palms that he actually keeps and protects throughout the winter time, and they are grown without any kind of problems in the northern part of zone 6. But I do know a couple of growers who actually have grown these in zone 6, and they found a lot of success with them for several years. Now granted, these past couple of years haven't been too cold, although last winter was exceptionally cool for what we've been experiencing over the past decade. But they do have some success in zone 6, especially if they can find some protection. When temperatures get down to the single digits, these are first and foremost perennial evergreens. They will not lose their leaves. They're not deciduous in any way. So when the cold weather hits and the snow falls, it's going to fall on these leaves and it'll sit on these leaves. So if the temperatures are to be expected around the single digits, it does need a little bit of protection. And protection around the single digits just basically indicates that you would need to wrap the crown of the plant in a plastic sheet to kind of protect it, and then you should probably go ahead and apply some mulch around the base of the plant to keep the roots kind of insulated and warm. Now, full-grown established plants can tolerate temperatures down to like -7. Established plants, older plants, can tolerate temperatures down to like -4 degrees Fahrenheit. But younger, newer plants can only tolerate temperatures down to around the 20s for just a little bit. So if you do know it's going to be exceptionally cold out, just kind of wrap yours up, maybe place any kind of plastic over top of it, and then make sure you put some kind of mulch or any kind of yard clippings or anything to help keep the heat in around the roots to keep it protected. And as I said before, when you're choosing your location for these plants, you always want to pick a location that gets some shade. It says online that they can tolerate direct sunlight, but as you can tell, mine is extremely stressed out. This is probably about a 5-year-old plant right here, and as you can see, the leaves are starting to narrow and kind of fold up. Now that just tells me that my plant is extremely stressed out, and usually what stresses these plants out is extreme temperature fluctuations. So if it's been warm for a couple of days and all of a sudden you get a cold snap, you'll see the leaves kind of respond like this. Or if you have your plant in an area that receives a lot of traffic or a lot of wind or a lot of bright direct sunlight, your plant will respond by kind of folding up the leaves, and helps to reduce any kind of water loss and to kind of further mitigate any kind of stress levels that it may be experiencing. So younger plants, whenever you pick them out and you have them in pots, or you want to plant them, just make sure you're not going to plant them in an area that has a lot of traffic and they're going to be constantly bumped and bombarded. These long petioles can experience a lot of trauma and then begin to droop or snap off, and then the leaves will begin to narrow if they're constantly being berated by wind or a lot of traffic, and they'll kind of fold up and respond to that and just look otherwise unsightly. But like I said, if you do plant them in a location that does receive a lot of bright sunlight, established plants can kind of tolerate those some, but younger ones will respond just kind of like mine is doing, and then you'll have to move them. And coincidentally, plants that are grown in full sun tend to be a lot stouter and a lot shorter than plants that do have some kind of protection from the sun during the harder parts of the day. Now, when deciding about how much to water your palm, just remember that this is a palm tree, and typically they do like moderate amounts of water. This is a moderate drinker. They don't drink huge, heavy amounts, but just like with any other tree, whenever you water it, you want to water it deep and thoroughly, and then let it dry out almost completely before you go ahead and water it again. So a lot of deep, thorough waters is best, and to ensure that it's been thoroughly watered, you want to make sure that the water goes into the top of the pot and then comes out the bottom of the drainage hole. Once water starts to exit the drain hole, that just means that it's gone all the way through and it's basically touched every part of the plants and the root system and then gone out the bottom, and then it doesn't need to hang on to any excess water. So if you have a saucer underneath it, after about 20 minutes, go ahead and tip the saucer over and empty the excess water out. Like I said, they do like a little bit of water, but they don't like to be kept in wet soils and saturated soils with wet feet all of the time. So if you're overwatering your palm, you can succumb to root rot rather quickly, but the soil does need to remain somewhat consistently moist, not thoroughly saturated for your plant. And if you're expecting temperatures to top out over 90 degrees, it may be common for you to go ahead and water it once or twice a day, just depending on how hot, how much wind and other factors your plant may be receiving in its environment. Typically these trees top out around 20 to 40 feet, and in their home ranges they tend to get up to about 60 feet, though around here they usually don't top out more than about 10 or 20 feet, so I wouldn't expect it to get up to the 40-foot range, although it's not unheard of. Now, whenever you're checking the soil of your palm tree, you make sure that you want to go ahead and get soil that is designed for palms. Like I said, Miracle-Gro has a cacti and citrus and palm kind of succulent soil that does really well for these guys. But basically they need to have some organic mixture, not too much, but it needs to be rather porous and loose so that all the excess water can drain away freely. Excessively chalky soils can sometimes leave the leaves looking rather yellow and drain it of their valuable green leaves color. So if you do have excessively chalky soils, that can be a problem, but they're usually not too picky whenever it comes to soil, as long as it doesn't have too much chalk in it and it is somewhat acidic. The soil pH for this guy is moderately acidic. They like it at around 5.5 on up to about 7.5. So in moderately acidic to somewhat neutral soil is best for this tree. Coincidentally, if you're going to be repotting your windmill palm, you'll want to wait for newer plants. They need to have a somewhat adequate root system before you transplant, and then they need to have at least 3 or 4 sets of leaves before you go ahead and transplant it to a newer pot. This will actually help reduce any risk of transplant shock because they can succumb to those rather quickly in the earlier stages of their lives. And if you're like me and you have little pets, I have 3 cats, a dog, and a bird, you'll be excited to know that the ASPCA has said that this tree is non-toxic. A lot of birds like the fruits or the drupes that this plant produces, and they'll eat on that, and they are pollinated by insects. But this is a non-toxic tree, so if you have little ones running around or little fur babies or feather babies, you don't have to worry about this tree. It is healthy to keep around. And interesting enough, this tree has been a tree that's been in cultivation for many thousands of years. Like I said, it did start out around China, and the exact area where it came from is a little bit unknown, but they do know that it came from the temperate and the mountain forest of China. But it's been grown for many, many years because of its leaf sheets of the fiber that grows up on the trunk. And if you can see right here, mine's about a 4 or 5 year old plant, and it's starting to develop the single stem that actually makes this tree so popular. But these trees have been cultivated for a long time, and for good reason. They have these single stemmed trunks that have these leaf sheet fibers that a lot of people use for making ropes, mats, and sacks. and any other thing that was where great strength was needed, because these leaf sheath fibers when woven together are quite strong. But if you look at them and you're kind of far away and you have a fully grown one, they are wrapped in a lot of that fur and that hair that kind of makes it look like it's almost wrapped in burlap. But a lot of people use that. The plant actually does have some medicinal values as well, but like I said, it is non-toxic. And it doesn't really have any problems with pests or diseases. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't have any, but it doesn't have a whole lot. They can kind of sometimes fall victim to palm aphids and scale, both of which not only siphon off valuable plant nutrients, but can also spread plant diseases too. So you'll want to keep those in check and just kind of look your plant over, especially now. As you can tell, mine is very stressed out, and I had to move him to kind of help combat some of that stress. If he were to get a couple of insects on there, it wouldn't take long for them to set up shop and really infest this plant because he's already stressed out. And since my plant is stressed out, I want to take care that I'm not stressing him out any further. So I've moved him into a area that receives less direct sunlight, probably about an hour, maybe 2 a day, versus about his 6 or 7 that he was getting. And I think that's helped some. But the other way that I'm going to help combat all this stress is to keep an eye on the watering schedule too, because like I said, they do like adequate water, so I don't want to overwater him, and I don't want to stress him out further and not give him enough. Consequently, inadequate watering schedules will really kind of mess these guys up, especially if they're already stressed out. So if you need to and you have a stressed out plant, make sure you write down whenever you're watering him so that you can be more consistent with the water that you are giving them. Inadequate watering schedules will throw them off quicker than too much water sometimes, and lead you to root rot. Now, as I was saying earlier, not only do they fall victim to a couple of different pests, but they can also fall victim to like chlorosis or leaf discolor. And if you're worried about that, an adequate fertilizer will help you there. These plants are from a particular region in China where they do receive adequate nutrients that they'll get mainly in their home environment. But since a lot of us don't live around that area or anywhere close to it, investing in a high quality, reputable fertilizer, a palm fertilizer, would be your best bet. And that's what I've done. I like the Espoma Organic Plant Tone Fertilizer Food, and that's geared more towards the tropicals like the palms and your hibiscus. Now they have an NPK percentage of 4, 1, and 5, which is great for tropical plants and trees. So if you want, I'll put a link up here to the Espoma fertilizer that I get. I believe for a 4-pound bag it's around $17 and some change on Amazon, but it is a high quality kind of palm fertilizer that I've experienced a lot of success with, not only with my palms but my hibiscus too. And also it'll help combat these browning tips and then a lot of like leaf discoloration. And then not only do they fall victim to the leaf discoloration, but they also have a problem with root rot if they're grown in inadequate soils, heavy clay soils, and they're getting in a decent amount of rain. They can definitely succumb to root rot rather quickly. Alright, and as always, I'd like to give a special shout out to my patrons. I'd like to give a special shout out to my top tier tree patrons like Tien. Thank you. I'd also like to give another shout out to my other patrons like David and Heather. If you are interested in supporting my channel through Patreon, please check the link in the description box below. As always, your support goes to keeping the lights on, the LEDs running, the high pressure sodiums, all the clean water, air, and energy that we need to be a plant dad. Fertilizer helps too. Alright guys, well this has been Justin, reminding you that if you can, go out and plant a tree. Let's reforest the world. And while you're at it, leave me a comment and let me know if you've ever had any kind of success or failures growing any of the palm trees, especially ones in containers. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button or the bell next to it. That way you'll know anytime that I've uploaded a new video. You guys take it easy, have a good one, and don't forget, always plant prudently. Thank you, YouTube.